Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Attract and Stand Out podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Hawley, and I have an amazing guest with me here today, Ursula Garrett. She is a friend of mine as well as a colleague. I've been working with her for probably the past year, referring business to her, and I got to know her in my local community here in Temecula, Southern California. Ursula helps entrepreneurs build empires one asset at a time. She has developed expertise in business and taxes over 20 plus years working with business owners and entrepreneurs to start and grow their business. She's a licensed and practicing CPA with an MBA in entrepreneurship, an international speaker, and an award-winning author of 2 books. She has a particular passion for working with female entrepreneurs, and you can subscribe to her email tax and business tips of the week at cpagarrett.com. And Ursula is married with 5 adult daughters, and she is an avid walker, hiker, and she loves to travel, which we're going to find out all about because, as you guys know on the podcast, travel is one of my favorite topics to dive into at some point during the conversation because all of us love to go places, and I'm always curious where people want to go. So, Ursula, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here with me today.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, let's dive in. Just tell us a little bit about who is Ursula? What's your background? Where do you live? What do you like to do? I know we talked about that in your bio, but share with us just a little bit about who you are.
Okay, so who is Ursula? Right now, Ursula is an empty nester. So I have to find ways to fill up my time. And so my clients get more of my time now than they ever have before. I'm that lady that sets her alarm for 5 a.m. and I get up and I go for a morning walk or hike and try to get into the office somewhere between 8 and 9. And I stay here a lot of nights till 6 or 7. And I don't know how to do anything else. So that's who I am, and that's a little bit of what my day-to-day life is. But you know, I grew up in South Carolina, a small town called Andrews. That town had about 4,000 people.
Yeah.
And I became a statistic. I was a teen mom. So I had my first kid at 14. And when I walked across the stage to graduate from high school, I was 6 months pregnant with my second kid. So that's kind of where I came from.
Yeah.
And, you know, by the time I was 21, I was divorced with 2 kids. And I found myself in the military for a little bit. That probably wasn't a good fit. Okay, that definitely wasn't a good fit.
You're like, no, bad idea.
I know, it's kind of hard to do those combat marches in pumps or stilettos. Was not a good fit. And from there, I worked in New York City for a bit on Wall Street. That was really interesting. Somehow or another, I found my way out to California. Can you believe this year? I hit my 30th anniversary being in California back in January.
Wow.
So I guess California really is my home.
Yeah, I think you're a native at this point for California.
I know at this point, you know, when I first started my practice, I heard a client say to me, anybody that's been here less than 25 years is just passing through. So I think I'm finally past the point where I'm just passing through.
Yeah.
But, you know, it took me 30 years to get my first degree. I got an associate's degree right around 30 years old. And then I finished up my bachelor's and worked for CPA firms, got my license, started my own practice. And I went back and got my MBA in entrepreneurship because that's really where my passion was. And I thought accounting was a great background to get me there.
Yeah.
So being in business for myself for over 20 years and helping countless number of business owners and entrepreneurs on their journey has just been, it's been a wonderful experience for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. And thank you so much for sharing all of that because we've talked before, and I think most of the people in my audience know I was a teen mom as well. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people, or I'll speak for myself, I was nervous to say that when I started my business and to share that I was a young mom. I don't know why. Now that I share it, like it resonates with a lot of people, and it's something that's gotten, you know, it's fine. Like for whatever reason, we tell ourselves stories, right? Like, oh, maybe I
Yes.
should leave that piece out, or what will people think? I don't want people to judge me. But that's been one of the pieces that I feel like have always connected me with my ideal clients and with the people that I've been trying to attract into my business, is just being myself and being honest and vulnerable. And that's part of my story. I was 17 when I was pregnant, my senior year in high school. And then I had my son right after I graduated. So I'd love to hear, what was that experience like for you as a young mom?
You know, it's unfortunate when I say statistic, because, and I call myself a statistic, is because that's really what it was. Teen pregnancy was not uncommon in my town.
Mm,
So while I thought, ooh, and one of the things I heard was that, oh, this is going to change your future. Basically, your life is over. There's not much you can do. And so all the dreams I had for my future, they shifted, they changed, but my dreams never went away. And I knew I was not going to be satisfied in that town. And even though I got married 1 week after I graduated high school, because I had plans to grow, and the person that I married was perfectly comfortable in that town, living there, and he's still there to this day.
was it?
um, I kind of went into the marriage knowing it wasn't going to work, because I had goals that I wanted to achieve, and I didn't see myself doing it. But I felt embarrassed to be a teen mom
Yeah.
with not just one, but two kids. And it's like, this couldn't happen to me. I'm a smart girl. I'm going to college. I'm going to achieve things. But it did happen to me, and I just had to find a way to make it work for me. And like you, I didn't bring it up. It was partially because I was embarrassed about being a teen mom, but every year it was less and less about that. It was more that I didn't want that to define me. I didn't want when business contacts saw me as, oh, she's that teen mom girl, or that teen mom lady. I didn't want them thinking of me that way. I wanted them to think of me as um, a professional woman,
Yeah.
that I was savvy, that I had expertise, that I knew what I was doing. And when you say things about yourself personally, people then use those things to put you in a box,
Mm,
to define who you are, instead of letting your accomplishments, your achievements define who you are. And last year was the first time that I ever publicly put anywhere that, yeah, I was a teen mom. I had to write, I did a landing site for my book, and about all the things that I was doing. And the person who was putting up the page for me said, I see lots of stuff about you on social media. You have all these social media links and whatever, and I don't know who you are. Tell me who you are, where you came from, and what you're about. And I just started writing, and it came out. And somebody that I know from a professional environment, we went to a transformational retreat last summer, and he told me that he read that on my page, and it was the first time I had met this person. And he said, my daughter was a teen mom, and I thought, her life is over. He said, but look at you, look at what you've achieved. You should be sharing this. He said, I wish I had somebody like you to talk to my daughter, to let her know that her life isn't over. She could still go on and do whatever she wanted to in life. She may have to make adjustments, but being a mother does not limit who you can be or what you can achieve. And so now, instead of just having it written on a website, I'm happy to share it. I go, if I can help just one person, then my story is worth being told.
yes, I so love that. And I always say that my son raised me just as much as I raised him. Like, I feel like I grew up in a different way than I probably would had, obviously, had I not had a child when I was so young. But I feel like I wouldn't be who I am today had I not had him by my side and had him as part of my life at that earlier age. Like, who knows what direction my life would have been, right? There's always like what I thought I was going to do, or how I thought things were going to look like after high school. And I'm so glad that my life was structured and changed because I was a mom, and it's helped me be a stronger person today. And I totally agree. Like, the fact that we're sharing these stories and letting other young moms know that it's not like Like, I remember my mom being like, what are you going to do with yourself? Like, you're having a baby and you're so young, like you're not gonna be able to work and you're not gonna be able to go to college. And I did all those things. Like, I went to college, I went to work.
Exactly.
I started my own business. I've done all kinds of stuff. And then I had more kids on top of that. And I still was able to accomplish that, because you have 5 kids, I have 4. Like, you're able to still create the life of your dreams the way that you want it to. And just because you're a mom doesn't mean that that's going to like change, or it's going to be structured differently. Yeah, we have to work harder sometimes, and we have to be really smart with how we're doing things, because we have a lot more things in our lives to worry about. Like, if you have to find childcare, you have to figure out,
Yes.
how to balance. That was one of the things that I found the hardest as a new mom and a young mom too, was balancing, like, working full time, being really good at my career and loving what I do, and then also being home with my kids and tucking them in bed at night and having like that flexibility and freedom. And that was part of what led me to starting my own business, because I couldn't find that in retail management, because I was working crazy hours. I was always at work. They wanted me nights and weekends and holidays and all of the things. And I was like, wait a minute, there has to be more out there for me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think it's such a powerful message that we can share, that you can still have the life of your dreams. And
Oh, absolutely. And it goes to the saying that necessity is the mother of invention.
yeah,
So when you needed more time for your family, but you still needed to earn a living, you found a way to make it work for you
yeah,
out of necessity. And sometimes that's what makes us stronger. When you have to worry about taking care of others, when you have people depending on you, you find a way to make it work. Anytime there's a need, that's when our creativity, our genius, our innovation comes out, because we know what we want. We just have to find a way to make it work. And it may not be the traditional way, but it still works.
yeah,
It took me 12 years to get a degree from the time I graduated high school. But I kept going to college. It just took me longer. I
yeah,
knew I wanted that college degree, and I wasn't going to stop till I got it. And then once I got my associates, then I got the bachelor's. Then I went on and I got the master's. So it's just, what do you want and what are you willing to do to get it?
yeah,
Sometimes you have to make a sacrifice. Sometimes maybe it's not so much of a sacrifice, but it's more, you just have to shift your thinking, shift the way that you're going to do it. Instead of going a straight road, maybe you have to take a winding path to get to where you want. But never stop reaching for your dreams.
yeah. And it's so true, because the path that I take could be totally different than the path you took, or somebody else that's listening to the show today. And we might take a different route, but we still got there. It doesn't have to, it's not like there's a straight path that takes you to success, or to being, or living the life that you want to. You get to choose. And sometimes you have, it's just like if you're going from California to New York, it's like there's a lot of ways you can get there.
Oh,
We
yeah.
all can choose a different path. We might have flat tires along the way. We might break down. We might run into friends and stay someplace longer before we take off and go another direction again. Or we might even get sidetracked and end up in Texas for a minute, but we still get there. It just depends
Exactly.
on what you're focusing on and the attention that you're bringing to it. So I'm just glad that there's strong women like us who are out there proving those statistics, right? Because I was told
Yes.
those similar statistics, like, you're a teen mom, like things might look different for you or whatever. And I pushed through it. And it just shows that when you want something bad enough, you can achieve it. And that's the same with business, right? Like, so along this journey for yourself,
Yes.
it sounds like you switched careers a couple of times. You tried the military. You worked on, did you say you worked on Wall Street, right?
I did. I work as an admin assistant on Wall Street for a Japanese security firm.
That's
So,
amazing.
and that was an amazing experience, being there among the traders and working. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but New York City was not my destiny.
Yeah. That's a big city life. I don't know how I would handle it. I've never been myself. So
No, I love living there and I love the city. It just was not the place I wanted to raise my children. And my youngest daughter ended up going back to New York City. She moved there when she was 16 to go to Joffrey Ballet, and then she started auditioning, and now she considers that her home. because that's where she goes when, well, she's not there now, but that's where she goes when it's in between jobs. She goes to New York City and she lives there long enough to uh, audition and get a new job. And then she goes wherever that job takes her, whether it's on a cruise ship, to an amusement park, she's a dancer, or to wherever she goes, wherever her next job is. And so, yeah, the city, New York City, is definitely a different place and it's a place of lots of opportunities. But when you're a young woman in New York City, it's an exciting place to be. Lots of opportunities.
I can imagine, yeah. So tell us a little bit then about your life now. So you've owned your own business now for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And I imagine that's come with its own speed bumps and things that have happened during that journey. Tell us a little bit about your practice now, because you're a CPA. So tell us a little bit about that, and what has been like the big reason that led you to becoming a CPA? Like, tell us about your passion for that.
Well, I knew my passion was in business, but I just didn't know how it was going to work. I started preparing taxes when I was in high school. My aunt would prepare taxes for other people, and I would sometimes help her. And so I really liked doing taxes, but I thought, oh, it's just something fun to do. I never thought that's what I'd be doing for a living. And I was taking college classes to get my degree in information systems. And one summer I took an accounting class and loved it. So I changed my major from information systems to I majored in accounting and minored in computer information systems. So it's still worked out. And then, you know, accounting is such a vast subject area. So there's lots of ways to specialize in a particular niche. And my niche was, well, taxes, obviously, but I love the business advisory part of it. And so I've shifted from just from being focused more on taxes to taxes as a part of the business advisory services, which is, you know, after over 20 years of working with small business owners, I've seen how businesses grow, how they fail, how they start from the inside out. And so right now I could take a look at somebody's financial statements and I can tell you, or hear the problem areas without you ever opening your mouth to say one word to me. Your financial statements and or your taxes will give me an insight into your business and where you need to make changes. And so that I find really exciting. That's what I'm really, really passionate about. So a couple of years ago, I started a corporation specifically for entrepreneurial training because that's just what I love to do. And I see a lot of young people that want to start a business, but they don't know how to start. And they can't afford to come to somebody like me and get one-on-one help with getting their business started, especially when funds are limited. So, you know, I found some free resources, some very inexpensive resources and ways that they could start a business without actually having to go broke to do it or get large loans to do it, depending on what the business is. And I got really excited about that. So I started developing programs, low-cost programs to help people start their business and start small and grow from there. And so that's one of the things that I do. I still have my clients, the ones that can afford to help me come in and help them work out what the problems are, or they have the money to come in and pay to help me get them started and get it set up right.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you don't have funds, then you have to be ingenuous. And so you have to learn to do things for yourself. And if somebody just tells you what needs to be done, then you can do it for yourself.
Yeah. I love that you kind of provide a roadmap to help new business owners on that path. I think so many of my clients I know, when they come to me, when it comes to the financial piece of it, they're like, well, where do I go? What do I do? Like, do I actually have to do this? Because finances can be, if somebody's not into math and numbers and they don't know what they're doing, like it can be super scary. And most of us will pretend like we're ostriches and put our heads in the ground and act like, oh, I just didn't know to look at that. So I completely ignored it. So I'm glad that you have these kinds of resources, because I think it's so important that even if you can't afford to have somebody like necessarily going over it with you, like just to have a place that you can go and know like which direction to be pointed to can be so valuable sometimes.
Yes. I find one of the biggest mistakes that new business owners have is they don't get everything set up right to begin with. So if you get it set up right to begin with, then you have a better chance of it staying right. It's when you get things set up not quite right when you start, and it costs extra, costs you even more in time and money and resources to fix the problems that weren't done right to start with. So I always say it's easy to do it right the first time than it is to have to go back and redo it. And that's one of the reasons why I really like to get young people or people that are struggling to get their businesses started. Just find the resources, come to me, let's figure out a way to get you started right. And then you can worry about the rest of it later.
Yeah.
It's easier to do once it's right.
Yeah. And it's so hard to backtrack. I know I always share the story. So some of my listeners might have already heard this before, but like when I started my business, I didn't niche down. I didn't get super clear on who my like ideal clients were. And it took me like 2 years to really figure out who the heck I wanted to work with and like where my zone of genius was at. And once I figured it out, I was like, why did I wait 2 years to do this? Like I had this mentality that, oh, I can help everybody and I can save everybody's businesses, which I could. Like I had the tools and the resources, yes, to help any type of business. But because I was helping so many different types of industries and I was helping them with different pieces of their business, that I didn't really get known for anything specific. So I wasn't really seen as like an expert in one specific area. And I didn't know what I didn't know at the time, right? Like once I got really clear that I wanted to work with service-based online entrepreneurs, like that's when my messaging changed. I was attracting more clients to me. It was easier to share my message and people knew who I was known as an expert for. Now I get referrals all the time without having to necessarily even market as much because I'm known for something where in the beginning I wasn't known for anything. And I always joke, I'm like, if I would have just like took my own advice, because for some reason, like we might know what to do when we're teaching it, but we don't necessarily always listen to ourselves, right? So yeah, start from the basics in the beginning, like get really clear on who your ideal clients are, get clear on your finances and know what your budget's going to look like, know what kind of money you need to make so that you can keep your doors open, like do the basic stuff. So, and it's that solid foundation, right? Just like when you're building a house, if you have to have a solid frame or solid foundation for that frame to go up on so that you can have longevity with your business. And so often I feel like the even my clients, like they come to me and they're just excited. They want to start their business. They want to get going. They want to make some money. They want to have, you know, clients on their roster. And a lot of times, like they haven't really figured out what their messaging is. They don't know who they want to work with. And it's the same thing with, I think, any business, just setting a solid foundation and do it right the first time so that you can just build off of it and not have like that weak infrastructure of your business.
Oh, exactly. What I find is that most businesses fail is because number one, they don't have a plan. Because if they had a plan, that plan would tell them some things like, who are you selling to? What problem are you solving for that person you're trying to sell to? Your target market, as you were saying.
Yeah.
And how much is it going to cost me to provide this service or product? So not having a plan and being underfunded are the two biggest reasons that businesses fail within the first couple of years.
Yeah. So when someone comes to you and they're looking for support with looking at their numbers and their finances, and I know you mentioned that like you can tell a lot by just looking at their finances before you even start talking to them. What are some of the key things that you're looking for so that some of the new business owners who are listening to this can know what to kind of look for themselves to make sure they have set up?
Okay, so the three major financial statements, and they're all going to tell us something different. So the first thing I do is I take a look at the balance sheet. Let me see what assets you have and what liabilities, because that's going to tell me more about anything else in your business, like who you owe, how much do you owe, can you really afford to stay in business, do you have any cash? You know, if a business has too much debt, there's not a lot you can do besides increase the revenues to get rid of the debt.
Yeah.
So if they have more debts than they have assets, then it's not really a viable business at that point. There are things that might need to be done to make it a viable business. But at that point, when I'm looking at it, depending on what kind of business it is, then I might say, you need to scrap this and start all over, because your business is so far under, it's going to be too difficult to recover. Or looking at what you need to do to recover, it's almost not worth it. Sometimes you have to learn to cut your losses.
Yeah.
And typically, if I'm going to tell somebody to cut their losses, it's because I look at the balance sheet and see just how far in the hole they are. The next statement, and a lot of people think this one is the most important, of profit and loss. Well, could be. It just depends. It's not quite as important, because if, let's say you own a corporation and you're the only employee of your corporation, and you don't want to show profits at the end of the year, you pay yourself a big bonus to wipe out the profits so you don't have to pay the corporate taxes. So there are all kinds of things that can happen so that you show a loss. That's not necessarily the end all to be all. So there are other things I look at to determine whether or not this is a profitable business. But profit and loss is good. That's what a lot of people look at. But now banks are not actually as concerned about it, because they know your financial statements can be manipulated to say what you need it to say. So a lot of the banks now, if you want to get a loan, what they want is access to your online accounting program. They're just assuming that most new businesses now are online, and they want to see the transactions coming in and going. They don't care where you put them or what you call them. They want to see what kind of transactions are coming in and going out to determine whether or not you can repay those loans. To me, the most important statement when I'm looking at a company is the cash flow statement. And I take a look at the cash flow statement to make sure you're not using next month's income to pay last month's bills. Because just because you have money coming in and your cash flow is good doesn't mean that, just because you have a lot of cash coming in, a lot of sales, doesn't mean that you have good cash flows. Because if you're making the sales and it's taking you 2, 3, 4 months to collect, but your bills are due within 30 days of that sale, then you have some issues. And so those are all operational type issues that would need to be adjusted, corrected, improved to make your business perform better and actually grow. You don't want to spend all your time doing some activity that's a symptom and not what the real problem is. And so that's why when you look at the financials and even the tax returns, you can look and see what the real problems are, because you're looking at the inside as opposed to what you see on the outside. And a lot of times the profit and loss statement is what you see on the outside, and it's not necessarily. It's prettied up to say whatever it needs to say.
It's got the pretty packaging, but when you open it up, you're not quite sure necessarily what you're going to get, right?
Exactly. So, so that's why I say you have to look at the accounting part of your business as the backbone, and you want to make sure that's set up right. Because then otherwise you could find the management of your business where you have to constantly go back and worry about the financial side, the accounting side, what the numbers are saying. You're always trying to fix that, and you don't want to spend your time running your business fixing the numbers, when what you really want to focus on is what it is you do and how can you grow that and make it more profitable.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, when you're the business owner, the numbers are not necessarily your zone of genius, which is why it's so important to have an amazing CPA like yourself to come in and be that backbone for you, so that they can look over the numbers with you, give you kind of their unbiased opinion of what's going on, and let you know what they're seeing without, so that you can focus on what you're good at, right? Like, see, I'm not a CPA. That's not my zone of genius. Like, that's not something that, I know enough to be dangerous, and I can help my clients through, looking at things as well. But it's important that you stay, as the business owner, that you're focused on where you're the expert at, and that you bring people around you to support you for those other areas to make sure that you have what you need. So, yeah. So what would you say? Go ahead. I was just going to ask, like, what do you feel is like one of the things that you had to overcome as you built your practice and your business over the years? So you've been in business for 20 years now. Like, what are some of the things that you wish you would have known earlier on, like hindsight?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. The one thing that I wish I had known 20 years ago that I found out maybe 2-3 years ago is that I needed a business coach.
Hmm.
And I know that seems really simple. People used to say, oh, you should have a mentor. And I used to think, I don't need some old person telling me what to do. In all honesty, that was my thought. It's like, I went to school, I got an education, and I've gotten some hard knocks, and I got some experience. I don't need somebody else telling me what to do. I know what I'm doing. I know my job. And that was just not the right attitude.
Yeah.
And I wish I had listened to those people that said, oh, I have a mentor, and my mentor says this, and I go, make up your own mind. Why are you having somebody else telling you what to do? But a mentor, a business coach, is somebody that's going to help you, that's going to look at your business from a different perspective. And I was like, I'm the one that helps other people with their businesses. I don't need somebody to help me. And I thought, well, that's exactly why I need somebody to help me, because these people that are running their businesses and their businesses are successful, it's because they reached out to somebody else that knew something different from a different perspective than they did to help them with their business. And I was too stubborn and too know-it-all to do it. And I never really understood the value.
Yeah.
Nobody really explained to me what the value of having a business coach or a mentor, advisor, or somebody that's going to help you. And I thought I wanted a business partner, not necessarily a mentor, because I did want somebody to bounce things off of. But now that's the one thing I wish I had known.
Yeah. And I'm all for that, as you know, as a business coach, like preach it. But yeah, it's so true, because I know even with my business in the beginning, I've always had some kind of mentor or coach as well. But I wouldn't say until probably like 5 years after starting my business, did I actually like invest for myself. Like when I started my practice as a business coach, I was part of a franchise at the beginning. And so I had a mentor and a coach kind of assigned to me to help support me get my business going. And I didn't really value it as much back then, if I'm being quite honest. I kind of had the same thought as you. You're like, I'm like, I already know what I need to do. I just need to go out there and do it. Like, I don't need somebody in my corner. And now I always have a business coach, no matter what's going on in my business. Like sometimes I might be in a group coaching format. Sometimes it's a one-to-one format, but I always need somebody that I can bounce my ideas off of and kind of help me see what I can't see, because so often, you know, we get that tunnel vision. We're very focused on what we're doing, and it's hard to see inside of our business the right way. And I love that I'm able to provide that for my clients, but I also need that for me just as much. I'm with you.
Well, you know, what's strange is that I understood the need to have a coach to help me stay fit. And so throughout the years, off and on, I've had personal trainers. But about over 5 years ago, I found it's 6 years now. It's just been 6 years ago. I decided the only way for me to do consistent fitness training was to have a personal trainer. And so I hired somebody 6 years ago, and to this day, he's still my fitness trainer. And so I saw how important it was for me personally to be physically fit, but I did not correlate that with, well, you need to do the same thing for your business.
Yeah.
So we have coaches in different parts of our lives. You know, a lot of people, you know, have their pastor to help them through personal and emotional things, or they see therapists. So we get coaches in different parts of our lives. We have friends that coach us sometimes on relationships.
Yeah.
But and so I could see the need for this in all parts of my life, but I could not see the need for a business coach until I go, you know what? I've had this business for 17 years, and it started growing in the first 5. And then for the next 12 years, it was kind of stagnant. And I was okay with that. And when I decided I wanted to grow, and I started researching, how can I grow? And almost every place that I looked at was saying, you need a business coach, you need a business advisor, you need pay for a business coach, how important it was to pay for a business coach. So I'm sure a lot of that is the change of times and with technology. And so a lot more coaches became available, and they were able to advertise in a way so that you could see, this is what's out there, this is what's available. But for whatever the reason, once I got a coach, then my business started growing 30, 50, 70% per year.
Yeah. Yeah, the statistics are proven like over and over again. I mean, look at athletes, right? Every single athlete that does really well, that's highly known, they have coaches and they need somebody to keep pushing them even further than they even know that they can go. And it's the same when it comes to your business. So yeah,
Exactly.
I'm glad
Having
you
that
brought,
accountability.
yes, so important. And I'm the type of person that I need somebody to hold me accountable in almost every area of my life. Like you mentioned fitness. Um, if I know that you're going to meet me at the gym, I'll show up to the gym.
Mhm.
But if it's just me going, like I might get distracted and I might be Netflixing on the couch or I might be doing anything else, right? So having that accountability and that support system can be so helpful and so useful. So I'm glad that you brought that up because it's definitely something that obviously I'm passionate about. And that's why I love my job is because I'm able to help support businesses to grow and to help be that accountability person that I know I needed. And I'm able to now support people in that way as well.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So tell me about the successes. Like, how have you defined success for you over the years of having your business?
For me, I think probably the biggest sign of success for me is a happy client. Uh, so this was probably about 15 years ago when I really knew that I was doing something right. As I had this senior client that came in and she had gotten a letter and she told me she hadn't slept all weekend. She got this letter from the IRS and she was so distraught, and I could see this lady had lost weight because she was so nervous about that. She had bags under her eyes. She came in and she was tearing up, and she said, "I got this letter and I'm so nervous, afraid of the IRS." I
Yeah.
looked at the letter, and fortunately this one was a really easy fix. Within half an hour I had solved her tax problem, and she cried. She was so relieved. She cried, and I held this lady while she cried. And to me, that was like the best feeling in the world, that I could do something in such a short period of time that could give someone a sense of relief.
Yeah.
So when I have a business client and they come in and they're excited and say, "Oh, I love that advice you gave to me, because this advice you gave to me, here's what happened, my business grew," or something like, that's when I feel like I'm being successful.
Yeah.
Is when I know that I've helped somebody else to achieve their goals. And so, as you can imagine, over 20 years, I have quite a few of those
Yeah.
clients, whether it's taxes or something that I help them to do to save their business. Um, Probably the biggest one, and I can't give names or too much detail,
Of
but
course.
I had a tax client that came in. They were new to me, and somebody else had prepared their tax returns. And when they brought the information in to me, they had like 2 or 3 years to do, and they had these Form 1099 miscellaneous, because the husband was self-employed working from home. But then he also had he had on he had non-employee compensation and he had royalties. And the wife was trying to explain to me some of this was royalties and some of it was non-employee compensation. And I said, you need to go back and have them to reissue these 1099s, because all of it is going to non-employee compensation. So they went back and had 3 years of these 1099s reissued to show parts of it was royalties. And so they saved a lot in taxes, because you don't have to pay self-employment taxes on royalties, but you do on non-employee compensation. And 2 years later, when the person that owned the company went to sell it, because he had already admitted by issuing those 1099s that my client owned a part of the company. It wasn't a large part, but it was a large enough part. So when he sold off his company, it was a software development company. My client was able to get over $2 million from the sale, because those were royalties and he had some ownership rights to some of the software, and that's what was being sold. And to this day, every year at either Thanksgiving or Christmas, I get the most amazing gifts from this couple. And I have not prepared their tax returns in about 5 years.
Wow.
They moved to Utah, and I still get these surprise packages in the mail. But
That's amazing. But
beyond that,
and it just shows like how important it is to have the right people on your team when you're a business owner, because had they gone to somebody else and somebody else just did the basics of their job to make sure they had what they had needed done, they might not ever have caught that. And that's a huge amount of money, like you saved them.
It was.
Or you made them, I should say.
It was. He got his share of the royalties for the software he developed.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, oh, well, thanks, I sold the company, they may or may not keep you on.
Yeah. One of the things that I talk about with my clients is creating raving fans, people that just love you and the work that you do. And that's like a perfect example of a raving fan. The fact that they're still staying in touch with you. You haven't done work with them for years, but they still acknowledge, and they probably refer business over to you too. If anybody mentions anything, I'm sure they would send them to you before they'd send them to anybody else, because they're like, oh, you need to go see Ursula because she saved us and helped us get a piece of this pie that they might not have known they were even entitled to had they left the paperwork the way it was before. So yeah, keep
and they
building
have
raving
sent me
fans.
new clients, and they have sent referrals, and they've given me glowing reviews on my webpage, on social media. So yes, they've done all that.
Yeah. And it makes it so worth it. I know for myself, when you get a testimonial or you have clients that just are so pleased with the work that you've been able to do with them, like it makes it so rewarding. It makes it, you're like, this is why I get up every morning. This is why I love what I do. Because and the nice thing about being business owners is we get to pick what clients we want to work with, right?
Exactly.
But sometimes we say yes to the wrong clients, and it can be a lot more work. So when you have like these amazing clients to work with, and you love them and they love you just as much back, it just makes such a beautiful relationship, and it really makes our job so much easier when we show up each day.
Oh, it does. And not every client is meant to be your client. Not every client is meant to be mine. And I've had to send clients elsewhere.
Yeah.
Pardon me. So sometimes they want you to do things and you say, no, that's not right. And I have to sign my name to this. So maybe you need to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or you engage them for some business advisory services, and I tell them, okay, here's what you're responsible for. Here's what I'm responsible for. And here's what it's going to cost. Here's the time frame it's going to be delivered. And if they're not working within their time frame, they're not doing what's required, but they expect me to fulfill and do something that it makes it impossible when they haven't fulfilled their end of the bargain, then I've had to say, here, take your money back. You're out of this contract. You go.
Yeah.
You find somebody that you can work better with, because I'm not the right person. So it's not always that it's necessarily a bad person. It's just we're not a good fit.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned too, like you refer them on to somebody who's a better fit, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you find that clients don't have the same values as you, the same beliefs, or if they're not going to be in alignment in some way and it's going to make the conversations hard or the transactions sticky, then it's easier to say, thank you so much. I've enjoyed getting to know you. I actually don't think I'm the best fit for you right now, but I'd love to refer you to so-and-so. And I think they would be able to take care of you in the best way. Or here's a couple referrals as well, so that you can interview other people. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's probably like the best thing we can do as business owners, is to say no to some clients, because we know automatically that they're not going to be the right fit for us. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, as we wrap this up, Ursula, I'm having so much fun talking to you, but I have 5 questions that I like to ask at the end of all of my interviews, kind of like a fun rapid fire. And you alluded to some of these during our conversation today, so some of them will be really easy. But I'm curious if you have a morning routine and what it looks like. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit in the beginning, but I love to just find out, like, what does your morning look like?
So my mornings are that I get up, and sometimes I try to get a workout in before my morning walk. Since when my daughter stayed with me, she equipped my home gym. So she likes for me to sprint as a part of my walking, to do the interval training. So I warm up on the trampoline.
Nice.
So, and then she also had these pull-up rings installed in my living room. So I have metal trusses. I live in an industrial house. So every day, several times a day, I'm pulling myself up, and I'm at the point where I can do about 1.5 pull-ups.
That's awesome.
I haven't gotten beyond that, even though I do it several times a day. But, I like to walk 3 to 6 miles each day. that's my happy place. If I can get 3 to 6 miles done, then that's my happy place. I come into work and I'm here for long hours. I go home. During COVID, since there's a pandemic, that's pretty much my routine every day. And if I don't get a chance to get my walk done in the morning, then I try to get a mile or two in the afternoons after I get home. My husband will walk with me. So several evenings a week, we either take a walk or we take a swim, hang out in the pool for a bit, and it's been really hot. So
yeah, I'm totally envious of your pool.
Yeah. And, those happy clients, they tend to bring me wine and chocolate. So when I don't eat it here at home, I eat and drink it when I go home.
Yeah, that's perfect. It sounds good. Well, who would you say has made the biggest impact in your life? If there was one person that you could pick, who would it be?
The biggest impact on my life. In all honesty, I'm going to have to say my oldest daughter. How you said your son kind of became your life, that's kind of how it was for me as well. So, she's 40 years old now. She's going to be 41 next month. Can you believe I have a 41-year-old?
No, you look good, girl.
I do. I know, I turned 55 last week, and then next month I'm going to have a 41-year-old daughter.
Oh my goodness, happy birthday.
Thank you. So I would say that she had the biggest impact on my life, because after I became a mom, even at 14, a lot of my decisions were made based on the fact that I was a mother and what I couldn't do because of my daughter. So that changed the whole trajectory of my life. So, yeah. And so that has to be the one thing with the biggest impact.
Yeah, no, I love that. One person. And I got teary-eyed as you just said that it was your daughter, and why, because I can totally resonate and relate to that, because we are who we are because of them. Like, we grew up super quick and we got to make really tough choices, and we had to prioritize things that most teenagers were doing, we were not doing. So we just grew up quick, and they make such an impact. So I love that your daughter is who you said. Mm-hmm. And I'm super curious about people's happy spots. Like, when you need to recharge and reset, where do you like to go for that? Or what do you like to do even?
There's two things I like to do. Is I listen to audiobooks and I walk. So if I get the two things together, I am in my seriously happy place.
Like, I'm walking and I'm listening. I love that.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm envious that you can actually walk without or while listening to something, because typically I have my kids with me, so that we're always talking about random stuff, which I love too. Mm-hmm. But I do enjoy a good podcast or a good audiobook as well. Mm-hmm. And my last question for you, and I know we can't do it necessarily today, but if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go and why?
Right now, wow, that's a good one. Okay, so this year, my youngest daughter and I were supposed to go to Africa. And I know that's a big continent, and it was probably the Z countries were the ones that Zimbabwe and Zambia were probably at the top of my list.
Yeah.
I feel like I would be going back to the mother country, because I see so many things when you watch movies or you see the news, you see all these stories about Africa like it's just one place, yeah, and not this vast continent of diversity. And I'd like to go see it for real instead of what I see on TV or in the movies, yeah, or in the newspapers. I'd like to see see all the good parts, all the good things about Africa, and not just the newsworthy things about Africa.
Yes. And I'm sure there's so much to explore that you could, and like you said, it's such a big continent, like it would take forever. So just going even to a few of those places and soak in the diversity and the culture and the wildlife that's there as well would be so amazing. I actually have cousins who did a wildlife excursion there, and the pictures they brought back were amazing. So it'd be phenomenal. If you go, just let me know and I'll come with you.
Okay.
It sounds wonderful. Well, Ursula, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be on with me. How can people connect with you? What's the best way for people to find you?
Okay, so the best way for you to find me is CPA Garrett. Look at that. Look at how easy that is.
Super
CPA
easy.
Garrett. And if you'd like to connect with me on social media, then it's ursulaisamazing.com, and that can get you to any and everything you ever wanted to know about me. So there's two different places,
Perfect.
CPA Garrett, 2 R's, 2 T's, or ursulaisamazing.com.
Awesome. And I'll make sure those are in the show notes below as well so that you can grab those links. And I know you have a free gift for everybody who listens today. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so what I'd like to offer today is a copy of my book, Plateau to Summit, the ultimate guide to take your business to the top. So if you shoot me an email at cpa@cpagarrett.com, then I'll send you a PDF copy of that book.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that amazing gift. I know it's probably filled jam-packed with all kinds of amazingness and tips for business owners. So definitely take up Ursula on this offer and just shoot her an email to grab that ebook. And Ursula, thank you again so much for being on. It's so fun talking with you, and hopefully soon we're back live and in person and can sip on some wine together out at the wineries.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I really enjoyed being here. I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Bye.